Hi, I'm Jeff Scott Soto, and this is Damage Control. Music, cue music, ba ba ba, a bunch of glitter and all this yeah! Again. Yeah, that's kind of too. I'm here at Dean Street Studios in London, England. Well, my last album was an album called Beautiful Mess, and I kind of ventured into something I really wanted to do for a long time musically. And I knew my hardcore fans weren't really going to dig it, but I also knew I was going to kind of open up and diversify a bit and get a wider audience with this album, which I did. But I don't think overall the fans dug the new direction. So Damage Control kind of describes what I'm doing with this new album. I'm kind of getting back to the basics and listening to the fans and what they really wanted out of me. And this time around, I'm kind of combining the best of all the forces. Musically on this album, I wanted to kind of take a few bits and pieces from the first two albums that I'd done with Frontiers Records, which were Prism and Lost in Translation. Both were completely different albums for the most part, but they probably had the closest influences and elements that the majority of my fans actually really appreciate from me. So I kind of dug into those things without repeating myself too much. I can't stand repeating myself. It's one of the reasons why I have a solo career. So I'm kind of digging back into those archives as far as vibe, but I'm also expanding on that a little bit and adding a little bit of the Talisman, Soul Circus influence as well. And you're going to have a very diversified album of 14 songs, and I love the direction of where it's going, and I think for the most part you're going to like it too. Well, for this album I kind of made a little wish list of everybody I wanted to work with and everybody I wanted to write with. That, you know, a lot of my friends and acquaintances in the business, most of them were the guys I was working with in my live lineup, in my live band. I started with them in the sense of let me hear what they have as far as original material, something that I knew could work for this album, could work for me. And they didn't let me down. It started with Edu Cominato, who's my drummer from Sao Paulo, Brazil, and his old writing partner in a band called Tempest, Leo Mancini. And they sent me the first tune, which is Give a Little More, and that was actually the first one that I demoed up for this album. With that, I loved it so much I asked Edu to come up with another one for me, and he's in another band with another guy named Diego, guitar player. And together they came up with something that was, once again, it was exactly what I wanted without me even asking or knowing what direction I was looking for. So I got 2 songs from Edu, and Edu is playing on 4 songs total on the album, actually maybe even 5. And then I was doing some gigs in Bulgaria the past 2 years, and there was a guitar player that was a pretty big fan of mine. He knew basically everything, a lot of the things in my career, a lot of things in my history. So much that he impressed me by kind of making a little mixtape, a little demo of him playing a lot of my songs through the years. And when I needed to get a guitar player out there, he was the first one I called. His name is Emo Markov, and he's a brilliant guitar player. And nobody knows of him because he hasn't really gone out of his own little world in Burgas, Bulgaria. And I really like the guy. I like his talent so much that I actually asked him if he had some original material that he wanted to play for me. And I ended up using 2 of his songs. One of them is called Afterworld, which is basically the last big party of the universe that we're supposed to have on December 11th, 2012, because obviously the next day we're all gone. So let's see if that actually comes true. And the other song is called How to Love Again, and that was an old demo of his that he sent me with a Bulgarian singer, which was quite dated and it was quite funny to listen to, but I heard something in the music so much that I asked him to just re-demo the song for me without vocals and just give me his guitars with a drum machine, and I was able to rebuild an entire song out of that. It actually came out really cool. Another guy I was really looking forward to working with, who's become a really good friend in the past couple of years, is Joel Hoekstra. He's playing with Night Ranger currently. I met him many years ago with an all-star kind of cover band, all-star tribute cover band called Scrap Metal with the Nelson brothers. That's Gunnar, Matt Nelson. And he was a lead guitar player in that. in that band, and basically all that was a bunch of different singers and kind of invited rock stars to come up and play the cover songs or to play the songs that made them famous or the hits that made them famous. And at the time I just exited Journey, so naturally they wanted me to sing some Journey songs. And I'd spoken and played with Joel a few times through those gigs, and then it wasn't until he started playing with the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, who I've been touring and working with for the past few years, that we actually reunited and started talking again. And of course now he's with Night Ranger, and we basically just every time we see each other and speak with each other or have a few drinks together, it always ends up the same way. We got to do something together. We got to see if we can come up with something. And so it was exactly that. I immediately called Joel, who was in the middle of this 6-month tour with Journey and Foreigner. It couldn't have been the worst timing that I called on the guy. And I said, "You got anything?" He said, "Listen, I'm going to be home. I got a week break. I've got to jump on stage with Rock of Ages. I've got to do this and do that. I've got another session. But somewhere in there, I'm going to send you a couple songs." And thank God he did, because he sent me 2 of my favorite songs on this album. Never Ending War is one of them, and Look Into Your Heart is another one that he sent me. And these 2 songs just came out brilliantly. And I'm very happy to have them on the album. I'm happy to have Joel on the album, who's actually going to be playing on those 2 songs as well. About the only song on the album that could qualify as a ballad is one called Bonafide, which was written from some friends of mine around the time I was doing Beautiful Mess, around 2008. They originally wrote the song to pitch for Aerosmith, and they wanted me to sing on it because they thought I could kind of capture that Steven Tyler vibe on it and would get it closer to those guys accepting the song to release. As it turns out, they never released it. The song's kind of been lingering through my repertoire for the past few years, and I thought it would actually kind of fit perfectly in the mold of what I was doing for the Damage Control album. I brought in Gary Shutt to do most of the lead work on there, but then I was lucky enough to last minute get 2 really good friends of mine, and one of them I was really looking forward to working with for a long time, who was Dave Menichetti from Y&T. Literally on the 11th hour, he was able to put in a solo, and the current drummer for Y&T, Mike Vanderheel, also did all the drums on that particular track. So I'm proud to have these 2 Y&T guys, and of course Gary Shutt on this particular track, and the rest of it's all me. There was a song when I was doing the last album, Beautiful Mess, that I really, really loved, that Paulo Mendonça, who was my producer and co-writer on the entire Beautiful Mess album, called Die a Little, and I promised myself I would do a cover or do my own version of it. It was something he wrote and sang and never released. Unfortunately, vibe-wise, it's something that should have fit more with Beautiful Mess based on the original version of this song. So this time I took the song and I kind of updated a little bit, made it a little more AOR, a little more kind of rock kind of vibe to it, so it would fit the album, and because it's one of those songs I really didn't want to miss out on. When I was doing Die a Little, I wanted to include somebody on the recording of it that I haven't worked with in, I want to say over 20 years. And that's my brother Joey, who was basically my drummer in every band that I was in from the time I started singing at the age of 11 or 12, all the way through high school and to just before I joined Yngwie Malmsteen. My brother was the drummer of every band I was in, and once I went onto the dark side of making it professionally, we kind of bowed out of playing together, and unfortunately he gave it up for many years, but he kind of re-sparked his interest. He was always such a great drummer and such a natural talent, and this time around that I knew he was getting back into things, I wanted to get him on this album. And I told him, I'm going to get you on a song, and because Die a Little became such an important song for me, I threw it at him. He listened to it attentively, and he came up with the drums, and he's finally on an album with me after all these years. And on guitar, one of my best friends in the world, Alex Lorenz, is a great guitar player. He's played on quite a few of my albums, and once again, I got him on one of my favorite tunes on the album. I went to Jorge Salon, who is my current 6-string guitar wizard from Madrid, and asked him if he had a couple songs that he wanted to donate for me, because he happened to be writing for his new solo album as well. And I was lucky enough to get 2 songs from him that he didn't actually say, I'm going to keep these for my album, for his album rather. And one of those songs is called Crazy Life, and the other one is called Take You Down. and it was really cool to get these songs because they're gonna be more of the up-tempo rockers on the album, and I think this adds a brand new element to what I do and what I'm doing, because it does have the classic Jeff Scott Soto sound and the classic rock thing to it. It has a 27-year-old guitar player's version of what melodic rock sounds like today. Fernando, his bass player, who's also my current bass player, playing on the track, and also his drummer, who's Carlos Exposito, an amazing drummer. Again, one of these guys that you've never heard of, but you're gonna hear a lot of soon. Jamie Borger and I have a long history in the band Talisman, and we have just as long a history of writing what we like to call the Cheese Factory songs. Jamie is very influenced by all that pink and fluffy 80s kind of rock, everything from Jeff Paris to Bryan Adams to all that really great AOR stuff that came out in the 80s. And you can hear a lot of that influence in his writing. And we've done a lot of stuff together that's ended up on my Essential Ballads albums. We've done things that ended up on Talisman albums. And I knew he would add that exact element that I wanted on the AOR side for this album. So I went to him, and once again, he too was, it seems like everybody was in the middle of doing their own thing. And the well was a bit dry, but then he found these two little gems that he sent my way, and he did his little la-la kind of melody thing that I basically completed by just putting lyrics over, because that's how we work together, and that's how we've done a lot of great stuff together. One of the songs was a gem called "If I Never Let Her Go." It's just a classic Borger Soto contribution. It's really cool. Elena, I actually wrote about my beautiful girlfriend, and I've never written a song with a girl's name before. I've always had that kind of danger zone of getting either too cheesy or writing something that sounded like it was forced. But luckily she has the kind of name that works great in the chorus, and so Elena has actually written about her and for her. BJ in my solo band is my rhythm guitar player and keyboard player, who's also an incredible singer, and he was a singer is the singer for the band Tempest. BJ turned in a song called "Tears That I Cry," and it speaks for itself. It's got all the elements that everybody's gonna want and expect from me. I already cut like 5 or 6 songs I wanted to do on the album, and I had a solid 13 songs, and BJ came to me last minute. He goes, "Man, there's one, you gotta hear this. I know I'm late, you probably can't squeeze it in." I think it was the first 30 seconds of the tune. As soon as I heard it, I said, "Oh my God, I gotta do the song." I thank you, BJ, for insisting. I plan to do the full-on European, South American tours. I'm hoping to bring it to the US finally, because it's been a long time since I've been able to tour the US as a solo artist. And there's a lot of big things coming up in 2012. Gonna be working on a new Wet album in the next few months, and that's probably gonna be coming out, if not the end of 2012, the beginning of 2013. And there's a couple other things I'd love to discuss, but I can't discuss at the moment. And when you're watching this and seeing this, they might already be happening, so it'll coincide with the little surprise factor.